This is Kay Rudolph. Today's presentation is going to be a mad dash through Google Earth looking at its uses for genealogists. This is definitely one that you're going to want to refer back to because this is an incredibly valuable tool, Google Earth, and there is just so much to take in that I'm almost hesitant to give it to you at one sitting, but that's what webinars are for. You can come back and look to them as you need to get review. So what I'm going to start doing today is I'm going to give you some examples of how I've used Google Earth, and then I'm going to do an overview of the platform to get you started, give you some tips on using the place markers, polygons, paths, and image overlays, and then discuss some advanced features, particularly certain layers that you will need to add in order to get the full usefulness out of Google Earth as a genealogist. So how have I used Google Earth? Well, the obvious way is some of the imagery is just beautiful. This happens to be an area where my ancestors lived and is an area that has beautiful imagery. So I can use Google Earth to explore where my ancestors lived using the tilt function to kind of give a sense of what the bird's eye view was. And of course go down and get the street level view walking down the streets that my own ancestors may have traveled. But the biggest thing that I use it for is to help me with my research itself. I use place markers to identify particular locations, for example, where ancestors owned land. In this case here, for Isaac in the 1860 census, he did not own land, but I did identify neighbors of his in that census and get a rough idea of the area where he was living. I actually color-coded this, so the yellow markers are for 1830s and the green markers are for 1840s and the red markers are for 1850s and the purple markers for 1860s. So you can do a lot of descriptive information that really helps you understand relationships between individuals and between families. Here I did an overlay of a plat map that included an area where Ben Barrow had property and was able to plot the exact shape of his property so that I could then, on an overlay of a modern day plat map, identify the exact lot description. Here I used markers to identify the different churches in the vicinity of an ancestor using an overlay of Scranton, Pennsylvania from a 1920s road map. And so I'm able to see the city itself at the time where the ancestor lived there. And I'm able to identify those churches that I'm really going to want to explore to see if I can find any family records. Here I did an overlay of an early topo map of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, doing the same thing to identify the synagogues that were near where ancestors were living. And this is really nice because this area had undergone a lot of change and is really unrecognizable from the way it was when the Stearns lived there in the early 1900s. Here I used an overlay of a migration trail map to illustrate the likely path of migration that this family used. I have their locations at from censuses So it was very clear that this family must have used the Fall Line Road, the federal road, into Santa Rosa County. Now, I didn't really need to do the overlay with that because it was pretty clear just by looking at their trail that they had followed that Fall Line Road. But the map was a nice way to illustrate that. In this case, a map was really critical in helping me understand this family's migration. This is the Lawlers, and we're in northern Alabama. And I really can't say much looking at this, but when I overlaid a contemporary map, I saw, oh, look at this. They seem to have been on this road here. And so going back in time, 1870, 1840, 1830, 1820, I have some suggestions on possible areas that I might want to research for earlier yet records. Here I've got a battle map for the battles of the 9th Alabama Infantry, and I have mapped them using Google Earth and overlaid the Civil War map for that time period that showed the railroads at that time. And I was cute and I actually used a custom icon that I downloaded off the web for my battlefield markers. So now, you've seen some examples of how I've used Google Earth. Let's explore how to use it yourself. We'll start by navigating the screen. Okay, let's take a look at what we've got. There's a lot going on here. The top left corner, we have the menu bar. That's very standard. We're going to talk a little bit about that. This section here are the toolbars. You'll be using those a lot. You may want to sign into your Google account. It makes it easier for you to email your research to other people. The search box is where you're going to search for addresses or locations. Places is where you will save those. And layers is where you will turn on and off various pieces of information that Google Earth provides. We're not going to be discussing the tour guide. I'm going to want to do a separate class on that. In the top right corner here, we have the navigation tools. When you zoom into a location, you'll get a couple of other tools. Over here, we have the scale that shows that now we're looking at 2.58 miles for that segment. And down here, it's telling us the date of the imagery, the latitude and longitude of the center point, the elevation, and the eye altitude, how high you would have to be a bird to get this view. Take a little time exploring all of the options in the menu bar. We'll visit some of them here in this presentation, but it's always good to take the time and explore any new program that you're working with. I do want to bring to your attention, though, a couple of things. One, if you look at the View tab down here on Reset, you will find the option to reset tilt and compass. Tilt is where you can give that sort of bird's eye view looking off into the distance, and it can be an interesting option sometimes. To create tilt, hold the Control key down while you click and drag on your mouse, and if you are in a tilt and you want to get out of it, just type the letter R on your keyboard. Google Earth gives you the option to view the world in any orientation that you would like. You can swirl this around and put north anywhere you would like to put it. If you get a little disoriented and want to go back to the world as you know it, just click on the letter N and that will reset you to due north. On tools, one item that I want to bring to your attention, just because sometimes you need a little break from genealogy, they have a flight simulator. So if you would like to pretend that you're flying F-16, you can take off from any of a number of airports, and if you have a joystick, all the better. But what I really want to show you is the tools option. This is where you can change the size of labels and icons and set a lot of other settings as well. On navigation, if you really hate it when you enter a place on Google Earth and it does that zip over there, slow down, and then tilts the Earth, you can stop it from doing that by here setting do not automatically tilt while zooming. I personally do not like that tilt while zooming. So that's how you change that setting. The help resources, there is a lot of good stuff in that. I really urge you to take a look at it, especially keyboard shortcuts on your computer, ways to change your view. Okay, moving on to the left sidebar. At the top is our search box. You can type in and search for anything. You can search for physical things, mountains, rivers, street addresses, names of towns, cities, countries. As you start typing, it's going to offer some suggestions, and this can be a real time saver for you. Once you have selected and entered search, it's going to put an icon at the location for that item that you searched for. If you want to save that item to your places so that you can get back to it again in the future, you're going to right-click on it here in the search results box and click on Save to My Places. It's going to save down here as a separate icon. I urge you also, after you have saved a place, that you go to File, Save, and Save My Places. It doesn't always seem to be necessary. I have not yet identified why sometimes Google Earth saves automatically and why sometimes things that I wanted saved disappeared unless I saved them through File, Save, Save My Places. So I've gotten in the habit of just like a nervous tick of periodically saving my places. Let's take a look at your Places section. Now, I have organized mine because I've got a lot of projects going on, and I expect that you will as well. So I encourage you to do this too. Organize these into folders. You can right-click on any item in My Places and add a folder or something else to it. You can have a whole lot of folders, and you can reorganize them as needed. When you've created a folder and you want to move an item into that folder, click, drag it up, and when the folder is encased in a box, let the item go and it will automatically be saved into that folder. You can even drag folders and nest them inside of other folders. Points, polygons, paths, and lots more. First, we're going to be working up here in the toolbar. The first item in the toolbar is to hide or reveal the sidebar. This is just a toggle where you can hide and reveal the sidebar to get a clearer area to work in. When you want to create a place mark, click on the place mark button. It looks like a thumbtack. It sets the place mark in the middle of the screen. You can then click and move it wherever you would like to have it. You can give it a name. It's telling you the latitude and longitude location for the place mark. You can change the icon to something of your choice. There are a lot of icons that come ready built in. You can also change the colors and the scale and the opacity of them. You can even add custom icons. There are a ton of custom icons available on Google Earth for free. Just Google free custom icons for Google Earth and you'll be amazed. You can also, in addition to or in lieu of this icon, you can insert a URL hot link at that point, or an image off the web, or a link to a web page, or you can upload an image from your computer. We'll be exploring that more in a future video that we do on creating tours. Polygons. Polygons are fairly straightforward, but they're going to require some practice. So you'll want to sit down and fuss around with this a little bit and learn how this tool works. It has some little oddities that you'll just need to learn by trial and error. To create a polygon, you can just click on corners and it will fill in between, or you can click and drag and it will create freeform shapes. If you need to edit a point, you want to highlight that point, you can then move it or add adjoining points or delete the point. You'll need to practice a little bit and figure out exactly how that works. And finally, you can adjust the border, the opacity, and the color. Actually, not finally. Finally is the measurements. This is a really cool little item. The Measurements tab will let you see the perimeter in whichever units you prefer, miles, kilometers, and the area. Likewise, you can choose whatever units you would like. Paths. Paths operate an awful lot like polygons. You can click and drag for a free line, or you can click individual points and it will draw the lines in between. Highlight a point and then right click to move it, or add adjoining points, or left click to delete it. You can also adjust the line's color and opacity and its width. By clicking the measurements box, you can see the length of the line in miles or kilometers or centimeters, what have you. So let's say that you have created a point or polygon or a path, and it is now in your places and you need to edit it. Well, simply go to the title of the object in your places, right-click on the title, and that will open the Options menu. Select the Properties option, and it will open the Properties box. And now it's as though this item is brand new. All of the points will come up and be editable, and you can treat it as if it was a brand new item. If you hit cancel, it will revert back to how it was before you made the editing changes. If you hit OK, it will save your editing changes. Adding image overlays is one of the most fun things about Google Earth for me as a genealogist, but it's definitely an acquired skill. I'll be doing a tutorial video that will step you through a practice problem, but essentially you can download any map to your computer. The file type has to be an image, a JPEG, a TIFF, GIF file, any image type file, and then you can overlay that. And I'll do a run through here of the basic process, but again, you'll want to refer to the tutorial video. So here is a map that I'm going to want to overlay. This is of the old Autauga County, the beats of 1850s and 1860s. You're going to want to identify on the map certain points, landmarks that will help you to locate and size this overlay correctly. And so I like to get sort of like 4 corners and the center. Now I go to Google Earth and I'm going to use the place marker tool to insert markers at each of these points on Google Earth. So Clanton, Milton, Autaugaville, Pine Level, and Wetumpka, I search for and I insert markers at each of those. I like to use the little round dots for that, but I make them red so that I can see them. So now I have the area where I'm going to be situating my map. I want to zoom out on Google Earth so that these landmark points somewhat fill the screen. I'm going to use the overlay tool button, and as you see here, Google Earth tells me this is where we're going to situate the map. That's why I like to have set my place markers so I can see how the map is going to fit into the area of the screen. I navigate through the directory to reach the file that I want to overlay, and I open it. Now, I'm going to want to move this out of the way, the properties box, so that I can adjust the map itself. This diamond icon you can use to rotate the image. These green lines at the edges you can use to resize to bring them in or out. The center X or the center crosshairs you can click and drag to move the entire overlay without adjusting its size. And so you're going to continue to work at it, pulling the sides in, recentering it, until you can get the place markers to line up as much as possible. And I've been able to line up pretty well. Wetumpka is a little bit off. Milton is all right. Pine Level, you can see, is definitely a bit off. Now, part of it might be the quality of the map that I'm using. I can also make my adjustments more precise by going back to the properties box and adjusting the transparency so that I can see through the overlay, and that will help me in my adjustments. In this case, because my overlay map is of a county, I'm going to want to make the county boundary lines on Google Earth visible so that I can use them to adjust my overlay map. And you do that under Layers, under Borders and Labels, under Borders, choosing second level admin regions. In the United States, most of the United States, those are counties. Of course, in Louisiana, those would be parishes. You may also want to turn on the labels for those admin levels to get the names of the counties displayed. So I have it put in as carefully as I can. I can see that there are some differences. I'd like to find out how far off my estimates might be. I mean, some of these are on rivers, and so it's possible that the river boundaries have changed. But I want to know, worst case, how far wrong am I? So I can look down here at the scale, and it's showing me that this length here is 9.5 miles. To get the scale, if it's not visible, you'll go to View Scale Legend. But I also want to try using the measurement tool on the toolbar. You click on that and it opens up the measurement toolbox. You can choose the units of measurements that you want. And then all you do is you click 2 points and Google Earth will calculate the distance between those 2 points. So the boundary where I have my map is about a little less than a mile from where Google Earth calculates that the county boundary should be. How to save your map images. So I created this map of the 9th Alabama Infantry, and I want to save it as an image that I can use in a report. So we're going to click on the Save Image tab, and it opens up several options for entering a map title and for editing the map legend. And then I save it. Now it is a standalone image that I can use as I would use any image, any photograph. Now we're going to talk a little bit about adding layers. Google comes with a lot of layers. We saw, for example, the administrative boundaries. That is a layer of information. But unfortunately, there are a couple of things that Google is kind of weak on. And there are a couple of things that are not so important to most people, but very important to us. One of the most important things to us as genealogists is the historical county boundaries. We're interested in those boundaries at the time that our ancestors were living there. And there is a tremendous resource available for us for this. You're going to go to the Atlas of Historical County Boundaries. I always just Google things because I can never remember URLs. So if I need something, I just remember the Newberry Atlas of Historical County Boundaries. That will take you to this web page. We're going to click on Download Files and click on State Downloads. That opens the list of the states. We're interested in the KMZ files. These are files that are compatible with Google Earth. Click on the state that we're interested in, say Florida, and it saves the KMZ file as a zip file. So note down where you save the file. I have my Google Chrome set up so that it displays my recent saves. I've gone a little bit crazy saving all of these files. It's a little addicting. There's so much information out there. So for me, it's very easy when I want to open a recently saved file. I can just click on this little caret arrow here and say Show in Folder. Because this is a zip file, I need to extract this file. So I right-click on it. That opens the Options menu, and I am going to left-click on Extract All. And then I will click Extract when prompted. Make sure that you remember where you've extracted your files to. Then you go back to Google Earth and you simply File, Open, and navigate to that file that you have just created. And here you have these historical files the historical county boundaries. Now, before I move on, I want to point out, when you open this KMZ file, it's opened in your temporary places. If you are going to want to refer to this in the future, you're going to want to click and drag this up into your permanent place section. Now, this is a really nice tool. You can just use this bar here to navigate to the time period that you're interested in, and the county boundaries will adjust to the time period set up here from 1763 until 2000. I mentioned there are a couple of weaknesses on Google Earth, and the big one for me has to do with rivers and streams. It does not really pay much attention to rivers and streams, but if you are trying to do image overlays, or if you are trying to identify the land that your ancestors owned, you really want to know the names of rivers and streams. But there is a workaround. You're going to want to go to the EPA website, Google EPA waters data for Google Earth, and that will open up this page, viewing waters data using Google Earth. You'll want to download this KMZ file here, watersdata.kmz, and I'm sure the version will change over time. Now, when you file and open that, you will be initially appalled. There is so much information here, and a lot of it you're really not interested in. Fish consumption advisories, monitoring sites, that's all right. You can go in, right-click, and delete on any of these that you don't want. I'm going to keep the canals and water bodies and coastlines, but I'm going to get rid of assessed waters and facilities that discharge and so forth. So you can keep what you need. But you'll notice, while we have lots of rivers, we don't have any river names. So that is another set of information that we're going to have to bring into Google Earth. We're going to be using a website called GeoNames, and the only way I can suggest you find it is by copying down this URL or by Googling GeoNames Google Earth KML. You're going to open that page, save that KML file to your computer, and then open the KML file in Google Earth using the file open and then pinpointing it in your file directory. And now you have the rivers and streams from the EPA waters, and you have their names from GeoNames. Another thing that is very useful for using Google Earth is to pinpoint the township range section of a piece of land using a website called EarthPoint. So let's say that you are looking at the Government Land Office website and you're looking at a piece of land owned by your ancestor in the state of Alabama, 13 north, 19 east, on the St. Stephen's Meridian, section 17 in Montgomery County. The aliquots are southwest quarter of the northeast quarter. All right, and you can look at the map on the GloBLM website, but you want to fix this location on Google Earth as well. All right, go to EarthPoint. The easiest way to find it is just to Google the word EarthPoint, and we're going to do a search by description. And we enter the information from the GloBLM website. The state of Alabama, the principal meridian St. Stephen's, township 13 north, range 19 east, section 17, and we click Fly to on Google Earth. That saves a KML file to our computer. We File, Open to open it on Google Earth, or more simply, in this case, I would just click on it because it's not a zipped file. So I can just click on it to open, and it will automatically open in Google Earth. And this is what you'll see. In orange, we have the township, 6 miles by 6 miles, the township center, and we have section and the section center. I'm going to go in and I am going to create a polygon for the southwest corner of the northeast quarter. And I'm going to copy and paste the descriptive information from the GloBLM website. Just copy and copied straight off of their website and paste it here. Though I did transcribe in my own words the text from the patent image. Give it a title and click OK. Be sure to move any items that you want to save out of temporary places up into your permanent places. You can delete these markers, the township and section, once you've placed your land, or you can keep them for future reference. So let's say you've got a lot of research on Google Earth on your computer, and you want to share a project with somebody else, or you get a new computer and you want to port all of your work over to that new computer. Well, let's start here with the example of a folder. I've got a folder that I want to save. It includes a couple of map overlays. It's got polygons and a variety of place markers. All you need to do is right-click on the item, whether it's a folder or even a single item. Click Save Place As. It will give you the option to name it and to choose where you want to save it. Save it. And now on the new computer, all you do is you go to File, Open, and open it. Now you'll notice that we don't have our overlays. Well, we have a placeholder for the overlays, but when you save a KMZ file, you are not saving the images, the overlay images themselves. And so if you look at this overlay now, you will see that in place of the directory path, we have the word files. So when you transfer your files to another person or to another computer, you're going to need to include not just the KMZ file, but you're going to need to include all of the relevant image files that are referred to by that KMZ file. Next, you're going to have to connect these overlays to the files in their new location. And the easiest way to do that is go to the file, the image file, right-click on it to open the Options menu, left-click on the Properties. Highlight and copy the location. This will be the directory path where this file is located. Copy that directory path back on Google Earth. Replace the word files with that directory path and save. You can do this with your entire places. Right-click on My Places and save it as a KMZ file. You're going to get all of the paths, icons, and polygons but you're going to have to individually reassign the directory file locations to each image overlay. Now that finishes what I wanted to demonstrate in this mad dash through Google Earth. You're definitely going to need to go back and review this video as you're practicing on Google Earth. I also have the PDF files available on the website pastinsight.com so that you can page through it if that is an easier way to view it than in the webinar. I have also prepared a tutorial that will give you the opportunity to practice installing an overlay on Google Earth. You might want to take a look at that.